LFFL Primetime, everything you need to know in about 10 minutes. We got some stuff going on, so I got a lot to talk about. Let's start in the original league. A lot of stuff to talk about right here. This week, I was able to take care of Eric and keep my playoff hopes alive, move into 6 and 7. Eric drops down to 10 and 3, but good news, Eric clinched that bye week last week. No problems here. But I want to highlight Phil. Phil moves to 9 and 4 with a 6-point win over Bill. Hurts Bill's playoff chances, but he's not out yet. Phil does pretty much lock up the bye week. He is now a 99.9% chance, what I'm going to call it. He is a game ahead of Andy. Andy scored 190 more points on the season. It would take a historically great week from Andy, historically bad week from Phil to change spots. That's why I put 99.9 instead of 100. Andy did win, clinches his own playoff spot with his win over Josh this week. Those three teams are in. What that means is we still have 3 more spots up for grabs. I don't keep great records about this. I'm wondering if this is the latest we've had this many spots available going into the last week of the season. Other winners this week, Matt keeps his playoff hopes alive with a win over Todd. And Miles, a big step towards the playoffs, a big win over Greg, denies Greg clinching a playoff spot. Greg is not in yet after this loss to Miles. Let's look at your standings. I told you, Eric on top, bye week clinched. Phil in second, bye week very, very likely. Huge point differential over Andy. Even if Phil loses and Andy wins, it's a massive point differential overcome. Andy is in the playoffs. But looky here, Miles and Greg simply win and you are in this week. If they can win this week, they will be in the playoffs. However, both have challenging games ahead of them, I think. Bill, Bill, myself, and Matt sitting in 6, 7, 8. We all have a live shot at these playoffs. So if you look at the points scored, which is the tiebreaker, Greg has the least points scored of anybody. So he absolutely needs to get this win to get himself through to the playoff mix. Matt and I are playing each other this week. So one of us will definitely move to 7 and 7. One of us will definitely be out of the playoff race. We are in an elimination game right here. Now, looking at Josh and Todd round out 9 and 10. Let's go to these matchups this week. Eric beat Phil back in week number 2. Phil, though, has a 33-25 lead in this series. Before last week's loss, Eric had won 5 straight games. Phil's won 3 straight games. As you will not be surprised, the 1-2 teams come in very hot. Miles taking on Josh. This is a formidable opponent. I know the defending champion isn't doing so hot. He's now lost 3 straight games. But if he upsets Miles this week, Miles' playoffs is in jeopardy because those points scored aren't strong. Miles, however, has won 3 or 4 as he pushes towards those playoffs. Miles did win in week 11, but Josh has the all-time 4-3 series lead. Bill taking on Todd. It's not an affordable opponent for Bill here. All right, he can get a dub. Todd's worst in the league. Todd is one of Todd's 2 wins is over Bill back in week 7. So Todd has literally not won a game since that game against Bill. However, Bill was really hot. Lost last week, but had won 4 straight before that. Bill holds a career 25-16 in the series. All signs point to Bill here. Can he avoid the upset? A win here goes a long way towards him making the playoffs. Has a great chance to make the playoffs and get a win this week. And then I told you, Matt and I playing an elimination game. This occurs as our traditional regular season opener. I made it towards the regular season ender as well. Matt beat me in that opener this year. Lost a ton of games early. I'm on a winning streak getting these playoffs late. Hard to believe. We've only met in 1 Super Bowl over the years. We've met 77 times, only one of them in the Super Bowl. That was a win back in 1996 by me. Matt, 2 straight wins. I won 5 of 6. Both teams are hot. Both teams looking to make the playoffs. Look for a great game here. But your game of the week is none other than this one. Greg versus Andy. This is our traditional season-ending matchup. It was often a massive deciding factor in our new school division back when we had those divisions. Greg was able to beat Andy back in week 9. However, Andy does hold a 24-22 lead in the series. And this game specifically is a game that Andy traditionally kind of played up for, even as having a bad season. This was a game where Andy came out swinging in these games. Greg has lost 4 straight games since that week 9 win. If Greg does not win, Greg is in trouble in terms of making the playoffs. Because Matterai is guaranteed to win. So should Matterai win and Bill wins, Greg would have to outscore us by a lot of points to make up that ground. I'm not sure it's going to happen in a loss, right? So Greg desperately needs a win here. Andy's gone only 2-2 since that game, but Andy currently a massive favorite on Fantrax to pull out the win over here. Should be a great final week in the original league. LFFL 2, not much to talk about over here. Andy's lead continues to grow. I was able to upset second in the league, Eric, this week. Greg, a big win over Bill to stay in the mix. But look at this, Andy, a 4-point win over Sean, moves to 12-1, putting together a historic season over here. Miles loses, so the 3rd place team also loses this week, drops a game to Todd. Phil also loses to the Merrill, so our 4th place team loses. What that means is simply this. Andy, look at the size of this lead. Andy at 12-1, 3 games up on Eric with the tiebreaker in hand on Eric. Miles and Greg are now 5 games back with just 5 games to play. That's not ideal. 6, everybody else is already out of it. Phil, Todd, myself, Merrill's, Bill, Sean, good luck next year. The only games that are really important this week. Eric is taking on Sean. Can he stay in the mix? Another loss would be devastating. Andy taking on Phil in this one over here. We also have Greg taking on Todd and Miles taking on the Merrills. They do still have that faint hope alive. LFFL 3, 4 teams are now locked in. I was able to win over Todd. I'm locked into a spot. Eric wins. He's locked into a spot. But look at this. Miles Moore brings the heat, upsets Phil. They both are now 7-6. We had Greg lock up his spot with a 10-3. He's now 10-3. Strong win over Bill. Locks up his spot. We have Matt beating Nate. And we had Andy, the upset over Matt Brennan. This cost him a spot as two. So basically, what we have here is Todd, Greg, Eric, myself. There is no bye week yet. If you look, Eric and I have the most points scored. If we can get a loss and we can get a win from a loss from them, a win by us, bye week still very much in play for those 4 teams. Then look at, I got 4 teams at 7-6 for 2 spots. Miles, Bill, Matt Brennan, Phil. Look at the points scored. Fairly close between Miles and Bill. They are currently in the 5-6 seed. Matt Brennan's still within shouting distance. Phil's points scored is a colossal problem for him right now. And look at the opponents. Phil taking on Eric this week, your leading scorer in the league. Phil desperately needs a win and a big score. Now, can the bye weeks change? We have Miles taking on Todd. We have Eric taking on Phil. We have Greg taking on Matt Brennan. We got some teams fighting for playoffs, taking on these top teams. We'll see what happens. The only one of these top teams not facing somebody challenging, I'm taking on Sean, who is currently 3-10, and Bill taking on Matt, who is currently 4-9. Can they pull an upset? We will see. LFFL 4, congratulations to my good friend Greg Kaufman. 4th win of the season, 22nd win of all time, moves within 1 of me for the all-time lead, 175.86. Very good. Matt Brandon in second. I was in third on the week. And congratulations, Monday Night Football. Jeremy's 2nd consecutive showdown win. He won Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football this week. His 4th win, showdown win of the season. His 7th career win in the showdown slates. I was able to take 2nd. Andy was able to take 3rd for a Simon's medal stand. Look at your standings. I have slid past Eric thanks to my strong finishes. Although I didn't win, strong high finishes, I moved past Eric. Eric, 136, just 3 points behind me. Greg sits at 126. Phil in 4th. Miles in 5th. Bill, Nate, we got a strong pack right in there for that mix. We have 3 contests this week. Thursday Night Football is just 1 game. New England, Pittsburgh. Probably won't watch that. That looks terrible. Just made my lineup today. A lot of Pittsburgh. The only reason I put New England in is because DraftKings told me I had to put a New England player in. Sunday main slate has 11 games because Monday Night Football has 2 games this week. Dolphins, Tennessee, Giants, Packers. We will have a 2-game slate for that. LFFL 5, first week of the semifinals, a 3-week semifinal. I have a slight lead over Phil. Sean, a little bit bigger lead over Greg, but no one's out of touch at this point. Still 2 more weeks to go in these games. LFFL 6, we have a new leader. Back and forth we go. Greg and Matt Brennan continue to swap this stop back and forth. Matt Brennan gets the lead this week. Phil has moved back into the lead in August is your big news there. On the season, we now have Phil and myself and Matt Brennan leading 6 of the 7 months. Eric is leading February. Nate is in 3rd. Phil's in 4th. Really, realistically, this is coming down to Matt Brennan and Greg. Just look at the standings unless there's some big dramatic turns. LFFL 7, we are saying goodbye to Mr. Berardi. He's been trying to leave for weeks. He is finally out. We are down to our final 2. Thomas and Nate, our last 2 teams left standing in the Elimination League this year. Look at their point scored is very similar on the season. This should be a great week 14. Might come down to bye weeks. Who's got some guys on bye weeks and who's got some injuries. LFFL 8. I'm sorry, we skipped that slide. Greg has taken over. We have a new leader. Greg drops another 200-point score on the board to move past me into first place. We are about 200 points ahead, 250 points ahead of Matt Brennan in 3rd. Likely, again, in this league, coming down to Greg and I, a battle to the finish. And then finally, LFFL 9. Not a big surprise here. The 2 teams, pretty lopsided matchups. Bill won the number 12 seed. He'll move over Todd, about an 80-point win there. And I scored about an 80-point win over Jeremy, myself. I move on as the 6th seed. So we have a 6-12 matchup. First time in ages we have, in the history of this league, we haven't had like a high seed in this final. So who knows who's going to win this one? Bill, you're allowed to move. I'm allowed to move. We'll see if our moves match up. And then we'll crown a champion. 3-week final over here. So hope you all had a great week. I know we are getting close to this playoff time. I hope you're making playoff pushes in all your leagues. Good luck to all you fighting for playoff positions this week. I look forward to chatting with you next week, breaking down the upcoming LFFL playoffs. We'll see you then.